Hi, everybody. This is Andy Lockwood from Lockwood College Consulting. Welcome to my special webinar, an emergency workshop. And first, I want to just congratulate everybody for paying attention to this information. It turns out I was way off in terms of underestimating how many people needed this information. I limited it to 100 people, and it turns out that I'm going to have to run this workshop again. So I have people that I had to freeze out. So for those of you who were proactive and were able to get in, congratulations. Let's get going. Why an emergency workshop? That may be the first question you're asking. Well, as I record this, I'm reviewing the results from this year's class of students, and I'm also looking at numbers, financial numbers. And there's really no other way to describe it besides parents and students are under siege. We're coming off of the most competitive year ever for college admissions. Here is an eye-popping, jaw-dropping statistic about Duke. Their waitlist is about 2 times as long as their incoming freshman class. Carnegie Mellon has 525 students on the waitlist for a class size that's maybe a third of that, best case scenario. Cornell waitlisted 3,179 students for a class that admits that numbers 2,988, meaning they waitlisted more kids than will actually enroll. And BU's waitlist back in 2010 was 1,151, and they let 8 kids off. Now they have 3,028, and I'm not sure how many have been left off yet. They may not have released that information. I'm also hearing stories about valedictorians being denied from schools, and college costs, on the other side of the coin, continue to skyrocket. Somehow, for some reason, 53% of all eligible students and parents don't even bother applying. They're leaving thousands of dollars on the table. So here's what we're going to cover today. The most important thing is the 4-word explanation, in a nutshell, why it's so hard to get into college and why costs are so outrageously high. I'll discuss how to level the playing field between you and America's top colleges, how to gain an almost unfair advantage over your child's competitors, many of whom are paying outrageous fees to professional packagers of college applicants. And I will give you information on how you can cut college costs by $5,000 to $25,000 per year, even if you think you can't possibly qualify for financial aid because you blank to blank. Let me fill in those blanks. Because you make too much. If you think you make too much, you can still cut your college costs. Quick word on what this presentation is not. This is not an infomercial. Yes, you will have something that I'm going to offer you, but think of this as a class. Whether or not you take the next step is going to be up to you. If you do not, the information here is still going to be valuable. This is not a sales pitch. By the same token, this is not a way for me to expertise you. I can't dump out 9 years of my experience into the next 45 minutes or so. It's not possible. I also want you to understand that this is not a magic pill, guys. You can't just swallow a pill and wake up the next day and everything's going to be okay. I will share some tested and proven tactics and strategies that I use every day in my private practice to help students get into America's top colleges and to help parents pay for them comfortably. But to be clear, if you're stressed out about how your child is going to get into a top college and how you'll be able to afford it, you will need to roll up your sleeves and get to work. I can't emphasize that enough. But what this workshop will do is guide you so that you don't go running off in several directions at once like a headless chicken. Let's talk about the pressure that is on students. There is more pressure than ever to have the perfect essay because it's so hard to get into school. You've got to have the perfect transcript, perfect extracurriculars, and perfect resume, and you can't be passive. That's the other thing I want to emphasize to you. This is a different ball game compared to when we applied to college. Guys, I don't make these rules. I'm just telling you the way it is. So you may not like this, but that's the way. Those are the facts. In today's job market and competitive graduate school environment, it's much more important than ever not only to perform well, but to perform well at the right college. So if you think you can just sit there passively and let things happen, thinking that your school is going to your guidance counselor is going to take care of this, or some someone else, some other third party that you don't know about, just going to magically appear. If you think that it's just going to happen by itself, instead of you taking the burden on yourself and being proactive and prepared, you better think again, because hope is not a strategy. Wondering who I am and why you should even listen to me, why you should pay attention. Well, I own a college consulting firm. I wrote a book called How to Pay Wholesale for College. So I guess you can say I literally wrote the book on financial aid. I hosted a radio show on ESPN Radio. I'm in all sorts of other media like Newsday and North Shore Today and Bankrate.com. I'm on the radio still once in a while. There's a show in Chicago and WIND that I appear on. Before I got into this business 9 years ago, I was a corporate lawyer in New York City. I was in-house counsel to a publicly traded broker-dealer, a financial services firm, and that's where I got a whiff and developed an insider education on financial services, how all this stuff works. But the real reason that you should pay attention to me, and the real reason that motivates me to work nights and weekends and give presentations to PTAs and other places like that, is because of my own horrible experiences with student loans and debt. I went to Wesleyan University, that's in Connecticut. It's part of the Little Three, and it's also part of the top 4 most expensive colleges in America. Thank you very, very little. So between Wesleyan and St. John's, I had a really bad time with student loans. I now have 4 children of my own. My wife and I have sworn a blood oath that we will not let them even come close to experiencing the emotional stress and financial issues that I had. And I hope that you feel the same way about your kids, and that's sort of my mission. All right. So how do we get here? First explanation. We got to this place of ridiculously expensive college costs and ridiculously hard to get into colleges through the Common Application. Common applications are up 20%. It's now more easy than ever to apply to 10, 15, 20 or more schools with one simple click. Explanation number 2. Colleges are marketing themselves more aggressively than ever. Yes, colleges market themselves. You may understand that when you get the mail, after your child takes an SAT. All of a sudden, you're bombarded with literature that all looks the same, by the way, from schools that you never heard of, as well as some schools that you have heard of. So this marketing has resulted in extremely low acceptance rates and longer wait lists. But what's the bad side? What's the bad news for colleges? Because this makes them more selective, and they can therefore improve their rankings in the U.S. News and World Report. You see the tension there? It's harder for you, but better for them. And the colleges themselves, including 2 of the more recent up-and-coming, or I should say arrived, colleges, Vanderbilt and Tulane, rely heavily on marketing consultants to achieve the results that they've achieved. If you don't believe me, check out this site, noellevitz.com. I put that right there at the bottom, Noel Levitz. So now we're experiencing these horror stories, such as the Horace Mann kid who got waitlisted. By the way, if you don't know about Horace Mann is one of the most elite college preparatory schools in the country, one of the oldest and most expensive. So this kid, who ended up getting into Northwestern, was waitlisted at 6 top colleges. And if you looked at his transcript and his extracurriculars, you would have been blown away by it. But he made one little mistake, one fatal flaw. I will discuss that later. Another horror story, the valedictorian at a top private school who was rejected flat out by Vanderbilt, whereas kids ranking several notches below her, I think the number 9 kid and the number 16 kid, got in. And then there's stories like the girl who got into Brown but got rejected at Bucknell. Nothing against Bucknell, but it's not an Ivy League school. Why would that happen? That's what we'll talk about. So what's going on behind closed doors? Well, on one hand, when a school rejects someone, they send sympathetic-sounding letters to applicants, regretfully informing them via heartfelt letters, "This year's class of applicants was the most competitive in recent memory, perhaps all time. I wish you the best of luck in the future." Yes, they do sound like that. So they're sending out letters like this, but on the other hand, they're high-fiving each other, rubbing their hands gleefully, hee-hee, and eagerly reporting their results to U.S. News and World Report. That's what's really going on. They've created their own artificial supply and demand by their own marketing efforts, allowing them to demoralize even more qualified students and charge higher tuition next year. Hooray! So where does a parent go for help? Here's one option. According to the Wall Street Journal, even though unemployment is soaring, retirement plans are sinking, but more parents are hiring educational consultants. Private counseling is a growing business, but it's a pricey option. Around here, I know people who charge $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, even $40,000, which may seem like a lot to you. I know two people who charge $40,000 to shepherd your child into a great school. Guidance counselors at public schools or college advisors at private schools, private high schools, are generally speaking well-intentioned. I will not bash them, but they happen to be overwhelmed and they can't keep up with demand. They're not expected to give personalized attention that you might wish you could get. And they're certainly not expected to handle complicated financial aid application questions. There's 1,100 pages behind the FAFSA, 1,100 pages of regulations. No way can they be expected to understand that. And frankly, a lot of these guidance counselors have like a 9-to-5 type of mentality. They put in like they're like a bureaucrat. They put in their hours and they go home. Do they care about your child slaving away 3 a.m. trying to craft the perfect essay? No. Let's talk about pressure on parents. College costs continue to skyrocket. The cost of attendance for 1 year at most private universities is between $52,000 and $60,000 per year. College costs increase between 6 to 8% per year relentlessly. They go up in good economies and bad economies. Other pressure, this doesn't mention what parents have to pay in income taxes and property taxes, gas prices. Maybe they're supporting a parent themselves, that type of thing. Why does college cost so damn much? Pardon my salty language. Why? Well, here's the reason. They pay deep six-figure, or even 7-figure salaries to presidents of universities. Why? Because of their demonstrated ability to raise funds. Yes. Why else? Well, they'll pay professors full-time salaries to teach a whopping 2 classes per semester, leaving much of the instruction to adjunct professors who are cheaper. Have you ever visited a school and toured their state-of-the-art health or gymnasium facilities? They are ridiculously nice because, of course, we can't have little Brandon or little Julie working out at a place that doesn't provide towel service. What about the dining hall? You can now sample food from the sushi bars. They have vegan options, gluten-free, all these different dining options. Those aren't free, guys. Those are expensive additions. There's one school, probably more than one, but I know of one college in particular that has an ice cream truck give out free ice cream to students. How outrageous is that? Isn't that ridiculous? I mean, I know what you're thinking. I can read your mind. That is so ridiculous because what do they do in the winter? Well, it's too cold in the winter for ice cream, so they give hot chocolate. I read your mind. Okay, moving along. Here's the four words that explains why college is so damn hard to get into and so damn expensive. Pardon my double damn. College is a business. I think you get the point by now, but if you don't, check out these numbers. These are tuition-only numbers that come right from a book called Higher Education that I cited here at the bottom, Higher Education with a question mark. Look at all these numbers for a second and ponder. Do you see a pattern? Do you see anything weird about these tuition numbers? Do you? Huh? Do you? Huh? Why should every school be the same? And why, question number 2 is why does Dartmouth, which is in rural New Hampshire, charge the same tuition as NYU and Barnard, for example, which are in urban New York City, maybe the most expensive place in the country, or one of them? There's no good reason. The cost of living is not the same. It's because they have to keep up with the Joneses. One of the great points of this book, Higher Education, makes is that let's say that Williams were able to they probably could afford to drop their tuition to under $20,000. Well, if they did that, they'd be afraid that perhaps other schools or other parents would say, "Hey, why is Williams doing that? Why are they discounting so deeply? Maybe they're going out of business." It's like all those camera stores in Manhattan. So that's what's going on there. All right, why don't more people know about financial aid and how to cut costs? I mean, you think it's relatively easy to fill out a form, right? Well, this is easy. This is the financial aid flowchart that the Department of Education publishes in its manual. Yeah, that is the okay. Yes, this is supposed to be a joke, but yes, this is the real flowchart. This is one reason why people don't know much about financial aid. So let's talk about a bunch of tips that I promise you. Some tips, some strategies, some tactics that should really help you master and level the playing field between you and the overpriced rip-off colleges. All right, first and foremost, you have to understand something that you may not like. This may seem crass. It may seem, I don't know what the right word is. You may be disappointed by this, but understand that you are marketing your child. Your child is going to, assume your child is going to have good grades and good scores. Otherwise, you wouldn't be on this webinar. Perhaps scores that are good but not great, or grades that are not necessarily great. But the point is that you are competing with many, many other students with the same grades and the same scores. How do you make that student stand out? How do you answer the question, why should I pick your child compared to all the other all the other children? Why are you not a dime a dozen? The answer is how you market your child, how you position that child. That's the first thing I want you to understand. I want you to write that down. But also understand that colleges have their agenda too. They want your child too if you market him or her the right way. They don't want just another kid with the same grades and scores. They want someone who's going to add something to the class, trying to build a class. So there are things that you can do to make to kind of turn the tables and make the colleges want your child. Here's another writer-downer. There's a myth of the uninvolved parent, the parent who just lets the kid handle everything. That was the case probably when we all went to school, at least it was in my household. These days, the kids who are getting into the best schools have very, very involved parents. Sometimes to the dismay of the children, but parents are getting more involved with ever. That's not to say that they do stuff like write an essay for their kid, although that does happen occasionally. That's not what I mean. Managing the essay process, helping with a schedule, helping with some of the menial stuff, helping the children stay on task. That is what the best students who are getting to the top schools, that's what they have in their corner. It's a team effort, and there's no such thing as an uninvolved parent. Here's another myth. This one's very painful for me. But summer is not a vacation. Summer is a time to step up the enrichment. Yes, you should have fun as a child. Yes, you should, you should get to goof off a little bit, but not at the expense of having a meaningful experience that you can, use in a college essay or use in, a short answer or in a resume. So you need to understand that the summer is a great time to sell yourself, or to lay the foundation to sell yourself to a top college. Here's another writer-downer. These are not in any particular order, but a lot of times when people are trying to get themselves into a top college, they overlook something that could be very advantageous. Sometimes there are majors that attract fewer students, and therefore they are easier to get into. It's almost like a back door. So that's a good question to ask when you're on a tour. Find out what majors attract the fewest students. You know something else? This is almost an additional writer-downer, 5A. Sometimes, if you have I was talking to a high-priced college advisor the other day, and he told me that he had a kid who qualified for a $10,500 scholarship as a computer major, which he was interested in pursuing, but he neglected to state that he was going to major in computers on the application, and he didn't get the money. So not only can some majors be easier to get into than others, but some will pay you. So that's another thing to consider. Understand that there is such a thing as last-minute credentials. If you have a kid who is going to his senior year or midway through his senior year, and up until then was not able to put something together that's going to separate him from the herd, it's never too late. So there's a great example of a kid who had good grades and not great, and he had good scores but not great, and he didn't really have anything going for him as a hobby. But instead, what he did was, he got waitlisted at a handful of schools. So his top choice school he got waitlisted at, he decided, you know what, I'm going to go on a campaign to get off the waitlist. So he and his mom devised a campaign where he turned his hobby of photography into something that looked more like a passion for photography. So he went around, he took some photos, his father talked the branch manager of a local bank into displaying the child's photographs, and now all of a sudden he's a published artist. And he went with that information to his top choice college, and they let him off the wait list. Was it solely because of that? I think so. Now the college had a reason to let him in. So this was a last minute thing. I wouldn't bank on it, but you can rely on last minute things too. All right, here's another writer downer. If you're not hiring costly SAT tutors, your child will be scored as if you had. Now, I say this for parents who live in affluent areas. So around me, my office is in Plainview, Long Island. There's Garden City, there's Roslyn, there's Great Neck. If you are a child and you attend those types of schools and you don't hire an SAT tutor and you end up getting a decent score, you're going to be viewed as if you did hire an SAT tutor, and your score is going to be weighted less compared to someone from a non-affluent area like inner city Chicago or inner city Los Angeles or something like that. Why? Because you're from a good zip code, good meaning an affluent zip code that schools understand the private SAT tutors and other people will help with, tend to cluster around. So your score is going to be judged as if you have done that. So if you're deciding, whether or not to hire an SAT tutor, please understand that even if you don't, you're going to be graded as if you did. More musts, more writer-downers. Do not start this process too late. All applications should go in September or October at the latest. So remember before I told you about the child who was the boy who was waitlisted at 6 colleges, the kid at Horace Mann? It had me scratching my head, I have to admit. I kept asking the dad, wow, his grades are so great. How come he didn't get into Cornell? How come he didn't get into these schools? He should have been a slam dunk. Then it turned out that he did not get his applications in until December. Yeah, December. This is a Horace Mann kid they're paying a fortune for college prep and the advice they should have gotten from their college advisors. So you cannot do that. This is not the time to procrastinate. Essays. A lot of kids get hung up on this. The first draft of your essay, it should suck. Again, pardon the salty language. Understand this cliche. There's no such thing as good writing, only good rewriting. You need to write your essays over the summer so your application can go in the early fall. Start over the summer. Avoid college essay sins. What I mean by that is, the essay about your leadership skills, the plethora, the lesson you learned on your teen tour. I'm going to make a recommendation here. I did not put this in the PowerPoint, but I'm going to make this recommendation to you right now. One great book, easy to read, entertaining, funny, also happens to be written by a guy who was a teacher at Horace Mann, which I mentioned before. But he was an admissions officer at Brown University and at Columbia. His name is Harry Bald, B-A-U-L-D, and he wrote a book called On Writing the College Application Essay. On Writing the College Application Essay. Secrets of a Former Ivy League Admissions Officer. That's a great title. Look up that book by Bald, and you will get some great ideas. It's easy to read. You'll also see what examples of bad essays. So avoid those types of sins. But you know what? The number one sin for the college essay is being boring. Boring. You want to avoid the type of essay that's going to put the reader to sleep. Because at the most competitive schools, each reader may be plowing through 200, 400, 500 essays in 2 weeks. You can't put them to sleep. You need to jump out and grab them. The first sentence of the essay's got to pop. It's like a headline for the National Enquirer almost, and you've got to take it from there and draw them in and keep going. And sometimes at these competitive schools, the essays are read by more than one person. And I've seen it time and again where a marginal student or a less qualified student gets in on the strength of his essay or her essay compared to the super qualified student with the boring essay. So don't be afraid to be a little controversial. Don't be afraid to be humorous. Be careful, but don't be boring. Parent must understand that there are grants, scholarships, and other financial aid for the forgotten middle class. Don't rule yourself out. I told you at the beginning of this workshop, 53% of all eligible families don't even bother applying for financial aid. Don't fall into that trap. Everybody should apply for financial aid. This is a huge mistake that people make because parents who make six-figure incomes are welcomed. They're recruited at top private schools from Harvard and Princeton and Yale on down to other private schools. They will bribe you. They will give tuition discounts. Don't rule out schools on sticker price alone. All right. Some assets count against you more than others. Some don't count against you at all. You need to understand that you can make mistakes on the college application and on the college financial aid application, and you can also make a mistake of omission to not know the rules. So let me talk to you about a deadly mistake that can cost thousands of dollars of money. When you get the question on the FAFSA, that's the free application for federal student aid, when it asks you what is the value of your investments, it also says very clearly on there, although you have to hunt for it, do not include the value of your primary residence. Don't do that. That's a huge mistake. Don't include the value of your primary residence. Another mistake, do not include in your investment value, do not include retirement accounts. Don't include retirement accounts. People make that mistake all the time. It disqualifies them for thousands of dollars in some cases. They don't want to know the value of your retirement accounts. And there's other things too that they may not count against you. There's other loopholes. You need to investigate all those loopholes. Understand that some colleges have more money to give, meaning they meet a greater percentage of financial need than others. So two schools can be about the same sticker price. They can be about the same in terms of prestige. They can look nearly identical on a number of different fronts. But one school may be a lot more generous than the other school. You need to understand that long before you apply, don't you think? I'm sure you do. Yes or yes? So you need to do your research. Wow, my numbering is way off, isn't it? How am I on 13? I think I had two number 12s. You're getting some bonuses here, just because I don't know how to do a good PowerPoint. Do your research way ahead of time on which colleges are more generous with the free cash. Do this long before you apply, because here's what you want to avoid. You don't want to avoid heading into your senior year, you get your college list together, you blow up this research, your child applies, and the worst thing that could happen is something that I still remember to this day. I had a woman, a man, and a husband and a wife come to me when their daughter was a sophomore. Great kid, was gunning for the top colleges, had a lot going for her. She was a math and sciences and engineering person, and a female, which is desirable for schools, and she was a minority. And the parents on paper had a tremendous amount of assets. And I told them, listen, you can do something to make the cost of MIT, which was her dream school, go from, at that point, $50,000 down to $18,000. I mean, they have that huge of a swing possible. So, long story short, we sat down. They retained me. We did a plan for them. They loved it. They couldn't. They had all these questions. They're very analytical, very smart. They loved it. They were happy with it. And then I caught up with them after, lo and behold, their daughter got into MIT. And by this point, she had the sweatshirt. She had the banner, the pennant hanging from her her room and when she was in her parents' house. She had posters of the Charles River in Cambridge, and her parents said, you know what, we just didn't get around to executing that plan. What do we do now? And I didn't understand what they were saying, but they said, we can't afford to send her there now. What can we do? Like, well, you can pay full price, which of course is not what they wanted to hear, or you can send her somewhere else. To this day, I have not heard back from them. I get the feeling that they broke her heart. You don't want to set your child up, have her do everything that she's supposed to take care of, and then after the fact tell her, oh yeah, by the way, we didn't do our part. We could have afforded to send you there, but sorry, we didn't get around to it, which is exactly what these people did. Bothers me. Anyway, enough irritation. So here's one question you want to ask. What percentage of financial need does this school meet? That's knowable. That's something they have to report to the college, to the Department of Education. You want to know how much financial need they meet. You want to know how is that need met. So let's say a school claims it meets 90% of financial need. Out of that 90%, how much is free money? How much is loans? That's all good information. That it's important information. Don't you agree? What are deadlines for applying? And here's a resource, collegeboard.com. You can look at all three of those questions. But the deadlines, that's important. A lot of people needlessly miss deadlines. Is it fatal when you miss a deadline? Not necessarily. But a school might have a priority deadline of November 1st or February 1st or February 15th or something. If you get your financial aid application afterward, you risk the very stark reality that your award will be less than you deserve, because a lot of schools give out money first come, first served. So make sure you understand your deadlines. So the financial need, how's that need met, what are your deadlines? Check out collegeboard.com if you want to do this on your own. If you are self-employed, understand that there are at least two huge loopholes that you might be able to take advantage of. One has to do with the value of your business. That is a question on the FAFSA. What is the value of your business? Surely you, and I'm not calling you Shirley, but certainly you will agree that there's more than one way to value a business, right? Business owners have a lot of flexibility. They have potential loopholes. One of them is tied to how you value your business. And many times, the value of your business should be zero, even though you think it's higher. And it has to do with the number of employees that you have. I don't want to get too into it. It's too complicated. I have a lot of ground to cover here. But that's a killer. And there's also many different types of tax benefits that you might be able to have to lower your adjusted gross income, which also gets you more financial aid and reduces your tax burden. I'm not a CPA, but I highlight things all the time. My clients then run back and talk to their CPA about them, and they rubber stamp it and say, yeah, it's great. And then the client will usually say something like, well, why didn't you tell me that before, to the CPA? And they usually shrug their shoulders. But anyway, not to get sidetracked. If you are a business owner, you have huge advantages. What about if you're divorced or separated? You also have a loophole that could save you thousands, and that has to do with who has custody of the child. Actually, I misspoke. It's related to that. It is not related to which parent takes the child as a deduction on the tax returns. I'm just going to say that one more time. It's not related to who deducts the child. If you are divorced or separated, you might have a tremendous amount of flexibility. What the FAFSA rules ask you about is who does the child spend more time with, the majority of his or her time with. And the answer, the way you answer that question, could have serious, big implications in the financial aid formulas. If you own a home and you're applying to a college that penalizes you for that, make sure you know the loopholes to legally and ethically lowball this asset. So a lot of schools, a lot of private schools will say, look, you have $300,000 of equity. We know you can tap it. We know you're going to take that equity before you take a parent loan at 7.9% or a private student loan. That's the other choice. That's nasty. It could be 11% and variable. We know you're going to pull an equity line with low interest rates right now. There's a loophole for that can pay off sometimes. It has to do with how the Department of Commerce values your home. It's called the Federal Housing Index Multiplier. I talk about it at my workshops. Does it always work? No, but it works a lot of times. It's a legal and ethical way to lowball your home value. If you do a search for the Federal Housing Index Multiplier, you might be pleasantly surprised. By the way, here's another tip. Do not use your assessed value. The FAFSA rules very clearly say this, they ask you the value of, when they're asking for the value of real estate, they say specifically, do not use the assessed value. So there's probably 21, right? But I only numbered 19. Those were the writer-downers. All right, moving right along. Here is, if I were drawing up a curriculum, so to speak, it would be divided into two different types of concepts, two different curricula, if you will. How to choose a best fit college. Just because a college is very prestigious doesn't mean it's the right fit. Some schools have different majors and programs within those majors. Some schools are known for being more entrepreneurial. Some schools have kids with nose rings and piercings and tattoos. You want to have all things being equal, you want to send your child to a school where he or she is going to fit in and be comfortable and has the greatest chance to succeed, because it's tough out there. How to choose a lucrative and fulfilling career. That's killer, because a lot of times people get focused on the next 4 years, but what about the 40 that are after college? Yeah, that's something worth thinking. So any type of analysis you can do before college, in terms of how to how to choose a career that exists and a career that's going to pay you, that's well worth the time and the effort. How to select the right major that leads to a good career, and how to avoid major switchitis. That's a strange disease that affects the kids. It's a bunch of, the symptoms are indecision, and it affects the parents. The symptoms are empty wallets, because the longer your kid takes to get out of school, the more it's going to cost you. So you want to do that type of analysis sooner rather than later. What about secrets of a winning college application? Wouldn't you like to know the difference between a great college application and a subpar college application? Because two kids can look nearly the same on paper, but the way certain things are described on one child's college application can far outweigh the effect of the other college application. How to write a compelling essay that separates you from the herd. I already gave you some tips on that, but that is a key component of student success. Here is sort of how I look at it, by the way. I should have put the slide in before. This is what I call, modestly, the Lockwood results triangle. You see there are 3 sides of this triangle. We're spending most of our time talking about 2. But upper left, there's tax strategies. On the upper right, there's the Title IV financial aid rules. And the bottom there is student positioning. So we're spending most of our time on student positioning and Title IV financial aid. The tax strategy stuff I mentioned in terms of the business owner, loopholes. There are tax strategies that are just beyond the scope of this workshop. All right, getting back to my success curriculum here. What about, there's different ways to write the same experience on a resume. You could say, you could be a cashier, and you could either just say I was a cashier, or you can describe how responsible you were and drill down on the duties that you had that highlight your responsibility and your attention to detail and your business savvy and that type of thing. So how you write up a resume is also critically important. By the way, here's another tip on the resume. Don't confine it to one page. Most resumes now are submitted electronically, so the rules of page numbers are antiquated. You can have a 3-page resume and it won't affect you. What about how to perform your best on the SAT or the ACT? The SAT and the ACT are not aptitude tests. The SAT used to be called an aptitude test, standardized aptitude test. Now it's called the SAT. It is a test that you can improve your results on, just the same way a top basketball player, will shoot 200 free throws a day. Not that he or she is learning a new free throw technique, or a golfer is learning how to hit a sand wedge. It's just repetition and drilling. So that's a big component to doing your best on the SAT, whether you're using a tutor, taking a class, studying on your own, you name it. What about the college interview? That is critical at some schools, not so important at other schools, but you need to know how to put your best self forward on the college interview. You need to be prepared with what types of questions they're going to ask you, and you also have to be prepared with questions you're going to ask them. Yes, because they might ask you, hey, do you have any questions for us? What about mistakes to avoid on the college visit? Whom you should speak with? What unseen areas that you'll never be shown should you visit? And what questions should you ask? You wondering what that is? I'll tell you right now. It's the Career Center. Yeah, make sure you see the Career Center. Find out what they do. What happens in the next 40 years after college, right? Remember that? Okay. What about strategies to get off the wait list? I gave you that example before about the child who did the photography project. He was updating the admissions people. So there are ways to get off the wait list, and more. Parent success. There's a whole separate curriculum on what parents should be doing. You need to understand the basics of the financial aid system, how it works, the biggest myths, how to take advantage of loopholes, how to research and compare college costs, how to calculate and lower, legally and ethically, lower your estimated family contribution, EFC. I talk about EFC at my workshops. I'm not going to belabor it here, but there are ways to lower your estimated family contribution. What does that mean? That means more financial aid for you. The lower your EFC, the more eligible you are for financial aid. What about costly FAFSA mistakes to avoid? We were scratching the surface when I talked about over-including assets like retirement assets and other things. There are many other mistakes that people make. I have a whole webinar on that. It's tedious, but it's a good webinar. Where are the merit scholarships? Really? I could give you a massive list that'll keep you busy for hours if you want to know where the merit scholarships are. What happens after you file? There's a whole a series of things that happens after you file. You need to be aware because you need to be involved. It doesn't just end with filing. And what about trying to improve your crappy financial aid award? How do you appeal a subpar financial aid award? This is kind of interesting because you get awarded initially. You get an offer, or you get an award, a financial aid award, that is typically based on how you look on paper and how you look in the financial aid formulas. But beyond that, you need to understand that if you're going to try to improve a bad financial aid award, you're going to be not just looking at the formulas, you're also going to be doing something that's less of a science and more of an art. I'm talking about appealing to the financial aid office's professional discretion, their professional discretion. So just 2 weeks ago, I had a client in here who, on paper, did not deserve a nickel of financial aid, but they had some circumstances that were, I guess the best way to describe it, that appeared outside of the so-called four corners of the financial aid application. So what do I mean by that? Well, the gentleman, self-employed attorney, his wife is a salesperson. They both make a high income. Their daughter got into Providence College. They got nothing in terms of financial aid, but there were some other circumstances in terms of things that had gone on in their lives in the past that had a bearing on their expenses, which you may not be aware, but expenses have very little or nothing to do with how you look in the financial aid formulas. So I was able to advise them on how to construct, I think it was about a 5-paragraph letter, maybe a 4 or 5 paragraph letter. And then lo and behold, they went from getting zero to about a week and a half later hearing back from Providence College. They got another $20,000 for a 5-paragraph letter. Not bad. Not bad at all. Not too shabby. Okay. How to compare financial aid awards from competing colleges. Two colleges may award you the same amount of money, but there might be key differences in those awards. Here's one that's near and dear to my heart, which I still relive every day. How to avoid student loan traps. Different student loans at different terms. There are some places to go where I would advise you to go to compare terms. There's some key elements you want to avoid. So here's my offer. I came up with a new coaching program, and I'll tell you a little bit about why I came up with this offer in a little bit. Normally, when people hire me, actually I'll tell you about it now. So I'll do a workshop, and I'll have a live workshop, and I'll have 50 families in the room. Last couple of workshops, I've had 100 and 120 and 93 families register for these workshops. And then what happens is usually I'll encourage people, although now I'm second-guessing myself, I'll encourage people to come in for a free consultation. And at the free consultation, number one, I'll determine whether or not I can help them or whether they can improve things on their own. And number two, if I can help them, then I'll say, look, here is how things, how things work with me. And my fees are usually between $2,500 to $15,000 or more, which is a pretty big number, right? But not everyone can afford that. Not everyone, it's not worth it to everyone. So I came up with a way because I'm tired of not being able to help all these other people who come to my workshop. They tell me they have a problem, but either they don't come see me, or they're just not right for me, or they're not excited about coughing up that amount of money. You can get the exact same advice that I give my clients who pay me between $2,500 to $15,000, but you can use it on a self-directed basis, meaning that I don't get that involved, although I'll tell you about how I do get involved. What I've decided to do is to test. It's a marketing test, I guess, for 100 families. So once I roll this program out, after I hit 100, the price is going to go up to $795. That's originally the cost I had in mind for this. But you can do it if you're one of the first 100 families. You can enroll for $495, which is $300 off. And instead of paying $97 a month for support, it's only $47 a month. So if you look at these numbers, and you do the math, it turns out to be less than like a latte a day. It's really not a big number, and it pales in comparison to the fees that that I command from my private consulting clients. But look, I can't. This is not going to be around forever, because after I hit 100, these prices are going to be adjusted. I promise. Don't test me. They really will go up. So, what is your guarantee? Well, there is a guarantee, and I call it my double-pronged, ironclad guarantee. If you don't make at least 10 times your enrollment fee, what I mean by make is if you don't get at least 10 times the value of your enrollment fee, that $495 in grants and scholarships, you will get all that refunded cheerfully, without hassles or hard feelings. That's the first prong of the guarantee. The second guarantee is even before you decide whether or not you were able to make 10 times your enrollment fee, you can test drive me for 90 days. And if any time, for any reason at all, you're unhappy with my materials, let us know, and your enrollment fee will be refunded quickly, and your membership fee will be immediately stopped. Why am I offering this crazier than Charlie Sheen, more powerful than a bullet in Bin Laden's eye, double guarantee? It may seem too good to be true. Personally, I had those thoughts too. I had those misgivings. Well, there's really two reasons. First reason is I know the people who respond to my advertising and might be on this webinar or this call tend to be smarter than the average bear, and a healthy degree of skepticism comes with that. So I don't blame you. I'm skeptical myself, but I'm offering this guarantee because I want to remove all risk from you. So now you have no risk. Even if you are skeptical, it's still worth putting your best foot forward. But the real reason is because I know in my heart of hearts that you'll be delighted with my information. It is life-changing. I don't mean to be hucksterish or or too promotional, but I'm really confident that it is great information. So I have no problem putting my money where my mouth is. I have no problem with the guarantee, even though I don't think that it's necessary. I'm doing it because I really want to test this product out. Because if it works well, I'm going to go wider. I'm going to go to a wider range. Okay, now let me throw in a couple of bonuses. But if you're waffling, I hate it when I hesitate. I hate it when people hesitate. Once you know something is good, you really should go for it, especially if there's no risk. That's sort of my philosophy. So just to nudge you along a little bit, I'm going to offer you these following bonuses if you take action today. Bonus number 1, I will review your FAFSA. This, by the way, this is worth a multiple. This bonus is worth a multiple of the fee alone. I will personally review your FAFSA. You'll prepare it, but I'll review it before you file it, because maybe, just maybe, I'll catch some costly errors or identify some loopholes that you could take advantage of to cut your college costs by $1,000, maybe $25,000. I see it all the time. I can't promise you that I'll catch a mistake or identify something helpful, but it's happened a lot, so maybe that'll happen with you. This is a valuable, valuable bonus. Something else very valuable. I will give you my time, not a lot, but I'll give you 2 15-minute free consultations. I bill my time at $450 an hour, so this is worth at bare bones half of that, $225. And again, this might be worth thousands upon thousands of dollars also. So you get those bonuses if you take action today. You'll also get access to my private email address. You'll get unlimited email support for as long as I'm alive. I'm generally in good health. I'm in my early 40s, so this really should be a long time. Wait, there's even wait, there's more. There's even more bonuses. I'm going to have open office hour call-in blocks. So I'm going to give out my private telephone number. I'm going to notify you. They're going to be at least once a month. I'm probably going to step them up once we get close to crunch time. But if you don't have enough of me between the email and between the consults and the fast review, then you'll have a shot. If you can get through, you'll have a shot at asking me your personal burning questions once a month in my office hours. I think that is valuable too. And I also publish a monthly college planning calendar so you don't blow any deadlines. I hear that all the time. I wish I had known this. Why didn't someone tell me about that? That type of thing. I don't want you to get blindsided by important information when it's practically too late. Or too late. Let me give you a few comments about what other people have said. From the minute I walked in your door for the first time, I felt an enormous weight had been lifted off me. Thank you for all that you have done to help me and my precious girls. That's one of my favorite clients, Beth Freeman. She now lives in Scottsdale. I'm still working with her, and she's great. And you can see here I made a big impact on her life. Dear Andy, I wanted to send you a letter thanking you for all of your help over the past few months. From the time I went to your seminar, I felt much more comfortable, so much more comfortable in what I had to do and how the whole process of applying for financial aid and scholarships worked. It literally was a huge relief knowing that there was help out there and you guided us step by step. You saved me thousands of dollars that will enable me to lose a little less sleep. Thanks for your help, guidance, and for always being there when I had dozens of questions. And they really were dozens of questions. The bad part for you is that with my 2 other children, you will have to deal with me for the next 10 years. Good luck with that. Sincerely yours, Michael Levy from Roslyn, New York. I'm ragging on him. He's not around to defend himself, but he's a good guy. He actually is one of my favorite clients also. He's a great guy. Dear Andy, I wanted to thank you for all the help you've given me. You were an enormous help when I had problems with the FAFSA form and the appeal to SUNY Albany. I'm going to recommend you to all my friends so they can put their mind at ease and not have to worry about undertaking this daunting process alone. Sabrina Ferrara from Hauppauge, New York. So, do you have questions? I know you have questions because I have a little secret. When I register people for my workshops, I ask them to fill out an answer to a question that I say, what is your burning question? And I've been collecting this information from more than 1,000 people over the last year or so. Actually, the last 4 years. So here are some questions that you may have. Should I even bother? I make a 6-figure income. Number one, far and away, that is the biggest question that I get. And the answer is yes, you should bother because many, many schools are making very prominent, public, loud overtures to families in the middle class. And I can't emphasize enough that income is important, but it's not the only factor in the financial aid formulas. Therefore, everyone should apply. And look, if for some reason you end up at schools that won't give you money, then you're protected by my guarantee if you want to invoke that. So yes, you should bother. Will this work for state universities or private colleges? I guess that's really 2 questions I combine into one. Yes, it will. The last few testimonial letters that I gave you, there was a smattering of state and private colleges represented. It works for both. So whether you're considering a SUNY or University of Wisconsin or Michigan or something like that, it'll work. I'm divorced and my ex won't contribute a red cent. Yeah, well, that's unfortunately that is altogether too common, and I'll even say something against my gender here. It's usually the husband that won't contribute a red cent. This is a way for you to get the valuable information that you need, because if that is really the case with you, that is information that a college needs. And they don't always ask that, but it's the information that the college needs. I cover that in my course also. My child is a good but not great student. Will this work for me? The answer is yes. There are plenty of very generous private colleges that are for B students or C plus or B minus students. And I say they're very generous because they meet a very high percentage of need. Sometimes 85, sometimes 90% of need. And whether or not you have a brilliant student is irrelevant because most financial aid is based on your need. not on your grades. So yes. Another question. We own our own business and are unique. Will this work for us? Well, first of all, I have to tell you, you're probably not as unique as you think. A lot of small businesses have cash flow issues. They have some great months, they have some not so great months. That's very common. Will this work for us? Not only will this work for us, this will work for you better, because as being self-employed, being in business for yourself is perhaps the last loophole, the last ultimate loophole in the tax code. So this will really pay off for you even more than regular W-2 employees. Other questions. My child is already overscheduled. Can I burden him or her even more? Yeah, this is a good question. I want to tell you, I said this in the beginning, there's no magic pill, there's no silver bullet. There is some work required. Whether your child admits this or not, I seriously, I know children are scheduled very heavily now, but they also play a lot of video games. They also do a lot of social networking. If your child is not committed to being able to, take the requisite time to draft an essay or to do research on a school, then I would say, who are you kidding anyway? Don't even bother. Don't even bother applying to top schools. So not only would I say this, this is not the right program for you, I would say reassess. You can't want it more than your child. That's sort of my bottom line. I am overwhelmed and confused, and I'm not getting any help from my guidance counselor. Will this be more confusing? That's a great question. The answer to that is I've done everything I can to make my course stand alone and be less and simplify, demystify how the whole process works. And if you buy today, if you get in today, you're going to get these bonuses which are designed to pick up from where the course leaves off. So if you still have questions after the course or midway through the course, then you get access to me via email, via the call-in hours, and all that type of thing. So the course, I think, stands by itself in terms of being not confusing. But if I'm wrong, then you get the one-on-one type of consultations also. My spouse will kill me if she sees this charge on my credit card. I'm not a marriage therapist, but what I can tell you is, chances are that the reason that there might be a little bit of, agita or flack about this is because no one wants to see their spouse invest in or buy something that is not needed or is not necessary. It's not going to pay off. No one likes to waste money. Your dollars, your pennies, very hard to come by these days. Really, what they're looking for is they want a reason to respect you for making a good decision. So hopefully your spouse is on board, and if they're not initially, they will see the proof in the pudding. And again, here's another reason I'll refer back to the guarantee. So there's really no harm here. I don't think you're gonna even dream about invoking the guarantee. But your worst case scenario is that you can review this for 90 days, and even if it's a great program, you can still decide to get the refund. So hopefully no spouse kills another spouse on my watch. All right, I get why I need this. Why are you doing this? Why am I doing this? Well, I told you. I see far too many people who I never get a chance to help, but I know they have a problem. I am committed. I've devoted my life's work to helping parents and families cope with college costs and avoid crushing debt. I am also a business. I'm also in this to make money. Don't get me wrong. But the way I've chosen to make money is for what I believe is to be a very reasonable price. And I actually lowballed it. I think it's worth a lot more than this. And I did that because I'm hoping that you give me referrals, selfishly speaking, and then I can grow my business and I can make it national. I'm very ambitious about it. That's why I'm doing this. Okay. Let me ask you this. Are you serious? Well, look, I know you're serious. If you're still on this webinar right now, I can tell you're serious. You've invested all this time to attend this workshop. I also know that you may have been putting this problem off 14 or 15 years. So it may not appear that you are serious, but I know you're taking it seriously enough to be on here. And by the way, if you've been putting it off, that's okay. You are human. We all put things off, present company included. But now's your chance to put aside the old you and move onward and upward. The stakes are too high today for you to continue this type of behavior. And you know what? If you think $500 is too much, just wait until you get nailed, until you get hit with your first $40,000 or $55,000 tuition bill. Then you're going to feel the pain. This is requires a small leap of faith, notwithstanding the guarantee. But look, it's a drop in the bucket compared to what's around the corner. What I'd like you to do is picture yourself relaxed and stress-free while your neighbors go at this on their own and are forced to draw their own conclusions about how you did so well. They'll wonder, perhaps you possess compromising pictures of the Dean of Financial Aid. Here's another nice letter I got, or excerpts actually from a much longer letter. When my friends started telling me that they received nothing in financial assistance, I once again began to worry. See, this is a client who had her concerns after she hired me for a much higher price than I'm asking you to invest. But when our packages started coming from Ithaca, the University of Albany, Syracuse, and the best yet, Boston University, my friend said, I can't understand how you received so much in assistance. Well, I got nothing. And I even had the FAFSA people fill out the forms. Is she crazy? Why would the people who are giving you the money want to help you fill out the forms? That's Stephanie Salzbank. She's from Port Washington, New York. Also one of my favorite clients. I guess I like a lot of my clients. I can't make you a more fair offer. It's double-pronged. It's ironclad. If you don't make 10 times your investments, we talked about this, you get 90 full days to test drive it. There is zero risk to you because I'm so confident you'll be delighted with my material. And here's my last word about bonuses. I'm giving the bonuses because I'm anticipating a very, unfortunately, I can't promise you that you won't have this complaint. I know I'm going to get this one common complaint with this membership. You ready for it? It's too much information. So I'm giving these bonuses so it doesn't feel like a fire hose down your throat. I'm offering you the 2 consults, the unlimited access to email, and the office hours so you can have your personal, where the hell do I start type of questions answered, but you've got to enroll today for the bonuses. If you miss out on today, you know what? The course is still great. I still urge you to consider it, but I'd like you to have the bonuses. So please don't miss out. Don't test us. I promise you I will pull the rug out from under you. I'm giving you fair warning. Bonuses are only if you enroll today. And you've got to be one of the first 100 also. Look, this is the last question I think you might have. It may sound like that I'm going to be taking up way too much of my time, providing 100 personal consultations and emails and office hours and all that. It may sound like a lot. But I know from experience that most people, 90%, at least 90% of the people, will not take me up on all this. Why? Perhaps they're looking for a silver bullet to fix their problems with no work on their part. Hopefully you are not like that. Hopefully you will take the bull by the horns and you will implement. You're not like them. You are going to be hopefully part of the 10% or maybe even less than 10% who roll up their sleeves, hunker down, and take action. If that hasn't been you in the past, once again, here's the chance for you to just make a clean break. Now your back is up against the wall, but I'm offering you a way out. And if you can change your behavior, then you have a real shot at success. If you are expecting different results from doing the same thing over and over again, that's the definition of insanity. So hopefully that's not you. Hopefully you're not like those guys. Hopefully you are like the 10% who implements. Is there any magic to why I'm taking 100 people? No. It's just a marketing test. It's plain and simple. It's a nice round number. I'm too busy with my current consulting practice to open up to more than 100 people. And like I said, maybe it's 25%. I don't know. It will take me up on my offer for free consults. But maybe it's 10%. Okay, I covered that. Who should enroll? If you make a good living on paper, but you think you can't possibly qualify, you should enroll. If you have a good student, not great, but a good student, and you're overwhelmed by the application process and you're not getting enough help from your guidance counselor, and you don't want to lay out $5,000 or $10,000 or $20,000 for a college advisor, this is the same advice. You'll get it. If you're a business owner, you should really consider this program. If you're divorced or separated, consider this program. Who should not enroll? I need to say this. I'm sorry. I thought about it. I knew this presentation was long enough, but I thought about it. I'm going to put it in. I'm going to review every membership application because I'm giving my time, my personal time to people. And to be blunt, this is not a place for whiners or for victims who always blame others that they were screwed, but they won't lift a finger to do their own work. I'm sorry. This is not for you. So here it is. I'm going to wrap up now. You can get in at $495. It's backed by my 2-prong double strength, no hassles guarantee. That is $47 a month. There's no contract. You can stop that at any time. And here is my website, andylockwood.com/coaching. It gives a nice little summary of these of this detail, and it gives you a way to order. Again, if you are in today, you get the bonuses, and I hope we get a chance to work together. Please go to that website now, andylockwood.com/coaching. Check out what I have to offer you, and make your own decision. Judge for yourself. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate the opportunity to get this information out to you. If you have any questions, there's the website for your answers. I wish you the best of luck. Bye-bye.